In this video, we'll talk about Azure Managed Identity in 5 minutes. We will cover System Assigned Managed Identity, User Assigned Managed Identity, difference between two of them, and when to use which. After that, I'll show you a demo of using Managed Identity. My name is Akash, and if you are new to the channel, I'm a software engineer working at Microsoft. Let's get started. Let's say you have a VM and application code. Application wants to connect to database. How will we connect it? One way to connect is by creating username and password and sharing it with application developer. But the problem is passwords can be shared or stolen. For example, someone accidentally publishes the file containing secrets on a public repository hosted in GitHub. Better approach is to put the password into Key Vault and then access it from there. But even that can be prone to security risk or hacking attacks. And if the key vault is compromised, then many other passwords will be compromised as well. Apart from these limitations, passwords needs to be managed properly. To ensure high security standard, passwords should be rotated every 6 to 12 months. And that takes time. So how can we make our application more secure and minimize security risk? And at the same time, also prevent overhead of password management. One way is to eliminate password altogether. And to do that, we can use Managed Identity. There are two types of managed identity, system assigned managed identity and user assigned managed identity. Let's talk about system assigned managed identity. Similar to user identities, resources are also provided identities in Azure Active Directory. In our case, VM is given an identity and you whitelist this identity on different resource. In our case, SQL database using identity access management. You can also provide permissions to manage identity like you do to user. For example, VM Managed Identity is given contributor access to the Azure SQL Server database. And by doing this, developers do not need to manage passwords. They are managed by Azure internally. In short, Managed Identity are special type of service principals. And don't worry if you don't know what service principals are. You can use Managed Identity for authentication purpose. You can think of Managed Identity similar to an ID card with a chip. ID card can be whitelisted on different door locks so ID holder can access them. But in our case, this lock is more complex and precise where you can grant different permissions like contributor, reader, owner, etc. And this has few advantages. You do not need to manage passwords. And because identity is tied to a resource, when the resource is deleted, it will be automatically cleaned up. In our case, if VM is deleted, so will the identity associated with VM. Therefore, making overall access more secure and time. This is similar to leaving your company and returning your ID card so they can destroy it. Now let's look at a demo of setting up System Assigned Managed Identity. To create System Assigned Managed Identity, go to the resource for which you want to create a System Assigned Identity. In our case, VM1. Then scroll down to Security and click on Identity. Here, you turn the status on and click Save. Click on Yes. So here, as you can see, System Assigned Managed Identity has been created and it has been provided with an ID. Copy this ID. Then let's go to the resource to which you want to grant this VM access. In our case, this database. Then go to the access control, click on Add Role Assignment, and then select the proper role assignment. In our case, SQL DB contributor. Then click on Next and click on Managed Identity. Click on Select Members, and in this, I'm going to go and click on this virtual machine. Click on this VM1, which has a managed identity. Click Select and then click Assign. This is how you create System Assigned Managed Identity. Now VM1 should be able to access this database without using passwords. Okay, now let's think about what happens when the application scales. Application will require more VM to handle new user. And each new VMs will have its own system assigned managed identity. And each of this identity will need to be granted permission on another resource. And this process will need to be repeated each time a new VM is created, like issuing new ID card for each new student or employees. This approach has two drawbacks. As the application scales, it will be difficult to keep track of who has access to what. And there will be overhead of granting new identity permission each time new VM is created. So how can we simplify this process? To make things simple, you can use User Assigned Managed Identity. User Assigned Managed Identity is a way to create one common identity that is shared between multiple resources to access common resource like a database. By using User Assigned Managed Identity, overhead of managing and tracking multiple identities can be eliminated. You can think of this as a washroom key at a fast food restaurant. Instead of giving unique keys to each customers, you share the key between customers. Now let's look at a demo of creating user assigned managed identity. To create user assigned managed identity, go to the search bar and type in managed identity. Click on the services managed identity. Click create. Select the proper resources and region and type in the name. Click create. Once the user assigned managed identity is created, let's add it to our VM resource. Under the VM, go to the identity section. Click on user assigned and click add. Here you will notice our newly created user assigned managed identity. Click on it and then add. As you can see, user assigned managed identity has been added to our VM resource. Now let's go to the SQL server and then select access control and then click on add. Select the permission you want to add. In our case, SQL DB contributor. Click next, select on managed identity. Click on select members and then select user assigned managed identity. We only have one identity, so we'll select this. Click select, click review and assign. As you can see, user assigned managed identity has been added as SQL DB contributor. So next time when an application scales and new VM is created, only this identity will be added and the VM should be able to access the database. After looking at the demo, you will have a question. Wouldn't we still need to add user assigned managed identity to each new VMs that we create? And the answer is yes. We have changed the problem from managing permissions on database to adding user assigned managed identity to VM. So how can we eliminate overhead of managing identities? This is where ARM template will come to rescue. If you don't know what ARM templates are, then you can think of them as instruction to create a resource. In our case, VM and its environment. In short, you can define ARM template to create new VM. And as part of that template, add instruction to add user assigned managed identity, so you don't need to add it manually. And this is how we can eliminate overhead of maintaining managed identity on VM side. Now let's look at the difference between system assigned managed identity and user assigned managed identity. System assigned managed identity are tied to the resources, whereas user assigned managed identity can be shared between resources. System assigned identity are automatically created, whereas user assigned managed identity are manually created. System assigned managed identity are deleted upon resource deletion, whereas user assigned managed identity needs to be deleted manually. So what is the guideline to use each type of identity? Use user assigned managed identity for scaling, especially when you have too many resources that need access to a particular resource. And use user assigned managed identity if you have only one resource that needs access to other resource. So this is it for this video. Hope it helped you understand managed identity. Please like, share and subscribe. And if you have any question, please comment below and I'll try my best to answer. See you in the next one. Thanks.